This final set of prompts deals with cropping, merging, and distorting your fonts. For prompt number 5, we're going to deal with placing our designs inside of different shapes, inside of other forms, or even adding borders around what's already created. Now remember, you can work with some pre-existing designs, especially if you've got one that didn't make the final 3 cut. And so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but let's see how we can take some of these words and place them inside of different shapes. Again, we'll start off with Golingo. I like the look and feel of this. Maybe I'll spread it out just a little bit more. The simplest shape that you can place it in, of course, is going to be a rectangle. Now with it being a rectangle, I'm going to set my color to be white so I can actually see it. And I can make my rectangle black. And there's one variation. The other thing I can do is, instead of it being a simple rectangle, I could move it off to the side, so maybe one area or another. I could take the rectangle, and since I've got my rounded edges turned on, so I could do it for all the edges, and see there's a good variation. Or I can take maybe just one side of it. Let's pull these back up. So I've got that. Use your white arrow direct selection tool. Select one area or one edge, and I can round off just that edge. And so there's a different variation. And that's all with just working in a rectangle. Some of these may actually fit well inside of a circle. So if I wanted to do something like, we've already done it for an A or a single letter, so that's certainly a possibility. If I wanted to do, I like the word type tongue. This works well for a circle simply because everything is nice and compact enough. Put it behind there, change my font to white. So here's just another variation of that type that's created. Maybe we'll tighten it up just a bit more and place those in there. So that's working with different forms. Remember, make sure the form makes sense to the design. Now, if you wanted to, you can also try some other different things. Sometimes they don't work better than others. A good example of this is like a star. Everybody likes the star, it's nice and noticeable, but if I tried to put type tongue inside of the star, I do have a bit more difficulty making it fit very well, and also making it feel like it's nice and balanced. So that would not be appropriate. I could, however, take just the letter T. Let's get rid of this. Excuse me, let's back up. There we go, just the letter T. We'll ungroup this, that's what was my problem. And a T would fit nicely inside of this area. So there's an option that I could explore and I could work with as well. I'm going to keep that one, we'll scale it down and place it up here. The other thing you can do is place words, maybe just a single word inside of it. We'll take this and ungroup it. If I wanted to emphasize the word way, so I'm going to make it white. And just like I did with my Golingo, put a shape around it. The size of it is going to be dependent on the word that you have, as long as it works out well. But that looks really nice too. So there's an option that I could work for from this one. If you wanted to try different borders, just like with the shapes, you can keep these nice and simple. So if I wanted to do maybe a rounded rectangle, and we'll make the stroke on it much, much larger. So there's simple text inside of a simple little border. I could play around with different strokes, different styles of it. So if I wanted something like this, there's an option. Let's actually give myself the other option that I had too, just a uniform stroke or different profiles of stroke to play around with. All of those are found under your type. And I can play around with maybe a double stroke. For instance, if I made a copy and I pasted this one on top of it, I can make a white stroke. It's a little bit thinner. And there's an option for an outline for this one. We'll pull that down and work with it. In addition to this, let's do maybe an open area border. To do that, I'm going to grab my pen tool. Let's deselect everything. I'm going to set my stroke for now to be relatively thin. And I'm going to start by drawing a line around it. So there's there's an outline. That could be it by itself. Maybe I can pull up a little bit more. And there's just a partial border going around this design. Maybe if I make it a little bit thinner, it could stand out. That's one option. If I made a copy of this one, oops, excuse me, just like I've done with the others, maybe I can scale this in just a bit and select one of the corners. I can round off that corner. So there's another option. If I don't like that, what would it look like if it was opened on the other side? All I've got to do is rotate it around, and there's that as an option too. So outlining it, placing it inside of things, making it work for that, that's all different stuff that you could do. If I did another thing for Terra Lingua, I like this one. Maybe let's explore. We'll make the L just a little bit bigger. You'll see why. I can grab my rectangle tool. I can draw off a line that matches the top of each one of these. And let's do the same for the bottom, putting it down here. Again, I'll zoom in, make sure it lines up nicely. I'm moving relatively quick because I want to get on to as many ideas as possible. But I also want to make sure it does look appropriate and it does look good. Later on, I can always go back and I can tweak these styles and these designs. If I wanted the rest of these to match up nicely, this is where I can break them into outlines, can ungroup it. Let's maybe pull up the I just by itself. So now, let's do the T over here too so that it lines up nicely. Now, I've got another area that looks really good. It's got a partial outline to work with. If you wanted to use some of your other shapes like polygons, this works really well. So if I got a 6-sided shape here, I could take it, select just these 3 and drag it out. Now I can put the word type or the word tongue inside of this one. It kind of looks like a tongue, so I'm going to put it inside of that. Again, just make sure you can select your type, make it white, and place it inside of that area and make it look partially decent this way. So now I've got a variety of different shapes, basic, simple shapes, not even worrying about the shapes looking like something. I've just used the basic ones and done some minor tweaks to place things in here. Remember, you don't have to retype anything. You can use pre-existing designs, or you can try to revisit some of the other prompts for this one. But prompt number 5 deals with placing your designs inside of a shape, inside of a border, or a part of it inside of some sort of frame. With this one done, the second prompt, or excuse me, actually the 6th prompt that we have deals with altering, cropping, and distorting your fonts. Once again, you can use some pre-existing ideas just as your starting point, but what we're going to do is we're going to take the individual letters and we're going to try to alter them in some way. We can cut them, we can delete parts, we can shorten or expand parts, we can replace them with other things and trim them, add textures to them, whatever you want to add to the overall feel of it. Now, what I'm not going to do is necessarily draw specific images on top of them. I want to use the existing fonts and the letters that go with it. So for instance, if I wanted idiom to have a different look and feel, maybe I can select it. First off, I'm going to go to Type and create the outlines. Shift-Command-O is a good keyboard shortcut to know. Remember, you can go to Object and ungroup them. And I'm going to use my white arrow selection tool and select like the inside counters for these two. That allows me to delete away the inside part of this. Now I've got some really cool looking idea and variation that adds a little bit more punch to an otherwise simple little design. That's looking really good for something with this. The other thing I can do, let's see, I can go to, let's do it for voice ink. So this is another simple little design. Excuse me, I'll scale it down, I'll make a copy of it. Again, Shift-Command-O will create the outline of this. And since I've got my corner widgets turned on, I can use my white arrow selection tool. You can select the edges of these and start to round them off. And this is a great way to customize the fonts that you already have, especially if they're serifed or sans serifed. You can round them off, and all I'm doing is selecting part of the design and rounding it this way. Walmart has done this for their font. They've taken just Helvetica and they've rounded off and softened these edges. This gives it a completely new look and feel without having to find another font or to work with anything. You can see I've just done a couple of those and how that rounding of those makes it seem much, much better too. So that's one particular setting from those two. If I wanted, I could take voice ink. We'll make a copy of it. Maybe we'll scale these down just a bit. Again, create outlines for those. And if you've got little parts that can line up with one another. So let's say I wanted this part of the V. I've got to use my white arrow selection tool to select that part. Now I can drag it over, see if I can get it to connect with the I. Perfect, that lines up really, really nice. Actually, the I and the L almost line up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down this L till it lines up nicely with that. Now I can pull those two together. Super duper simple, easy to set it up. Let's see if I can fix that I. I don't want this I to be in the way, so I'm going to use my selection tools. Let's bring it down. Could round it off, that's what it's wanting me to do. I just want to select it and get those two. There we go. Voice ink. So now I've got that nice and squared away too. And I could do this for any particular part. There's nothing that says I have to keep it just like this. But there's another variation on altering the letters that are there. If I wanted to add on to certain letters, let's see if I can do, let's do it for Metalang. So with Metalang, I like this. Maybe I want to, I'm going to pull out that M. I'm going to do some variation on this M. Oops, excuse me, I didn't mean to hit a V. We'll make the M much larger. Create outlines on it. And if I wanted to do some sort of decoration, I could do decorations along the border. I can do little lines. Later on, we'll talk about adding lines. I know what I want to do. I'm going to do some triangles that go along this bordered edge. So I'll make maybe a white triangle. I'm going to rotate it. And when I place it right here, that's starting to give me something a little bit more decorative. And I can make copies of it all the way along. By the way, if you make a copy of something, if you go up to Object and Transform, Command D will copy it again, or it'll transform it again. So now I've got these little lines going all the way down the edge. So now Metalang all of a sudden has kind of a cool little pattern that's also part of its brand mark. I can do it on one side, I can make a copy of it and flip it around. Now I've got it on both sides, and now I've got something that I've added to there that works really, really well too. So there's a way of adding some sort of embellishment or design. I could do little circles inside of it. I could do triangles on the outside of it is another way of doing it. I could even go so far, since I've got these little edges here, let's choose Metalang, create outlines. Maybe I'll add some little spots and points to these parts too. Now it's really lining up. It gives those places place to rest in with it too. Let's pull that up just a bit more. Nice. I'm not saying it's the best design, but it's a direction that I can certainly go in. I'm going to group those together. The other thing, talking about merging things and cropping things together, is let's go with the rounded thing. I'm going to take this waywards. I'm going to put the W inside of here, and again, we'll make it white so I can see it. And if I had it coming out of this area, now that's okay, that works. That actually kind of looks very, really nice. There is a downside to working just in black and white. If I was to drag this over to the gray area, you could definitely see it. What if you want to cut it away? What if you actually want to get rid of the white and subtract it from the little circle? Well, to do that, I've got it selected, and again, I'm going to create the outlines. Now with the outlines created, I can select both the W and the circle, and I can use my Pathfinder tools. I don't see my Pathfinder panel, so I'm going to go to Window, down to Pathfinder. Pathfinder allows me to merge things together, and in this case I want the second option that lets me minus the front. That'll subtract away the white area. Now I've got a good looking logo cut away from an area working with this. And you can do that for full words. If you have something a little bit more complex like this double T that's here, again I'm going to break it apart into outlines. Let's put it inside of let's do a polygon this time. I think I can get away with a triangle. Let's do a triangle. I'll set that up. Maybe I'll rotate it upside down. Select my T's again. I'm going to make them white just so I can see them. Yeah, I'm kind of liking the look of this. But since it's multiple objects, another way that you can also cut things out is by using your Shape Builder tool. I'm going to turn this red just so you can see what I'm talking about. The Shape Builder tool, once you have both objects selected, is usually hiding underneath your... There it is. There it is by itself, underneath the other little tools on the middle of your toolbox. This allows you to select your objects, hold down the Option key, and this will erase away whatever area that it's touching. And in my case, it allows me to clean up and erase away the red from the black that's behind it. So the Shape Builder tool is a great way of quickly and easily customizing exactly what you want to take away. Maybe for this one, we'll also add, so that one was for type tongue. That looks good. Could put that there. Maybe this is one I could also turn to the side and get it to match that one. Yeah, there we go. That's looking like an option to work through from there. So take these, take a moment to alter them, altering the individual letters, rounding off corners, break them apart. Remember, go to Type and Create Outlines in order to do this. You can add on embellishments. You can otherwise distort them or cut them away. Let me show you one last thing. This is also a good one to know. Let's say I took just a simple design. We'll do type tongue again. Another way you can distort your letters is by using the envelope distortions. Let's get some of these out of the way. With my type selected, I can go up to Object, down to Envelope Distort, and choose Make with Warp. With this turned on, you get a variety of different options under the warp options. Now, depending on the style you have, you can change it up, and you can see how that's going to alter your design. Then you can start playing around with the bend of it, more or less. And sometimes you can also play around with the horizontal and vertical tweaking. Now, if you go too far, you can see it's going to start to become very, very unreadable. Some of these are going to give you better results than others. Really depends a lot on how you've got your design laid out. So for instance, that looks nice, but it's not readable, so I wouldn't use this. Same way for this one. But maybe some of these arcing ones would be a good direction I can go for just to be able to arc my text. So playing around with these envelope distortions is another way of doing it. Once again, Object, Envelope Distort, and making it with the warp. The thing to know about these envelope distortions is once you're finished, if you want to be able to select the individual letters and make changes to it, go up to Object and down to Expand. When you say OK, that'll break it apart so you can ungroup it, and now you can select the individual things. I always expand it just to make it easier on me in the future. All right, so take some time now, go through each one of these, and once you are finished, you should have a variety of different ideas that you can pull from. So now I've got all of these as options, and I've got all of these. Pick the three that you like, place them inside of the crop, merge, and distort, but keep your other ones so that they can be used for future designs as well.